Devastating floods in the United States, a deadly heat wave in India. A new report says the extreme weather is all related, and there is more of it to come. Also tonight, a startling failure of airport security. Investigators get fake bombs and banned weapons past screeners almost every time they try. Bruce Jenner's transition, the former Olympic athlete says, "Call me Caitlyn." And it was the big one at the box office, but an earthquake expert finds fault with San Andreas.
This is the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley.
Good evening, Scott's on assignment. I'm Charlie Rose. Scientists today made an ominous prediction. We'll be seeing more extreme weather like the flooding that killed at least 30 people last month in the southern plains while damaging or destroying thousands of homes. And on the other side of the world, the extraordinary heat wave that killed well over 2,000 in India. They traced the cause of it all to the very top of the world. Here is CBS News correspondent Chris Van Cleve.
May took Texas from drought to destructive floods, while on the other side of the globe, excessive heat turned deadly in India. In a paper published today, researchers from Rutgers University offered an explanation for why, arguing climate change in the Arctic is slowing the jet stream over the northern hemisphere, leaving the weather increasingly prone to repeat. Climatologist Dave Robinson.
Everything slows, and with it, weather patterns persist over areas for longer periods of times that could make a wet situation dangerously wet. It could make a heat wave dangerously long.
Typically, the jet stream would move storms from west to east across the U.S. In May, it funneled storm after storm to Texas and Oklahoma, resulting in the Northeast being unseasonably dry. California is stuck in drought, and Alaska having its first 90-plus degree day earlier than ever.
May was such an unusual weather month. What happened?
Nature hit pause.
The National Weather Service's Chris Vaccaro says the phenomenon can happen anytime.
We even can see this in the winter months in the Northeast, where you'll have, like in the Boston area, where we had repeated snowstorms over a short period of time.
Forecasters say the storms in parts of the Northeast and the weather we're seeing here in the mid-Atlantic today are signs that the weather pattern is off repeat. That's welcome news for folks in Texas who are finally getting an opportunity to dry out. But Charlie, no sign of relief for California's historic drought.
Thanks, Chris. Sunshine is in the forecast for Texas and Oklahoma this week. This is a welcome change after weeks of endless rain and floods that caused about $1 billion in damage. But Omar Villafranca says relief will be slow in coming.
It's not over yet. Rivers and lakes are still at dangerously high levels. On Saturday, an 8-year-old girl in suburban Dallas was killed after a car crash ejected her into floodwaters. Rescuers had to use a boat to recover her body. At least 21 roads were still closed in the Dallas area, but that didn't stop some drivers from ignoring low water crossing barriers and risking their lives to pass through. Lieutenant Scott Walton is with the Dallas Police Department.
What's worse, if you actually move a barricade, the person that comes along behind you doesn't know that barricade was there and puts themselves in danger. This is a violation of state law.
Just 30 miles from Houston, several hundred cattle were stranded in floodwaters and had to be rescued. Along the Brazos River in Houston, officers have something new to worry about: gawkers. Doug Adolph with the Sugar Land Police Department is trying to keep people from getting too close.
If you go in, there's a strong likelihood that you're going to go under and you're going to stay under.
Oh, no! Almost a week after a swollen Blanco River devastated Wimberley, Texas, 6 people are still missing. Several thousand volunteers continue to search through the rubble. Resident Joel Moore said he did not see it coming.
We had no idea the river was that high, no idea, and we're right there on it. At the end of the day, you're in Texas and people are only going to leave when they're forced out sometimes.
Nearly 6,000 homes and businesses have been damaged in this Texas flood. And Charlie, that number could change because hurricane season started today.
Thanks, Omar. We've got some alarming news today about security at our busiest airports. Screeners have failed test after test when federal agents tried to sneak in fake bombs and weapons. Homeland Security correspondent Jeff Pegues has more on that.
Undercover investigators posing as passengers were able to smuggle dangerous items 67 of the 70 times they went through airport security. The so-called red teams, whose job it is to uncover security vulnerabilities, had a 95% success rate. smuggling mock explosives, weapons, and potential bomb components through TSA checkpoints. The contraband included both metallic and non-metallic bomb parts, like those used in the underwear bomb which almost exploded aboard a Delta Airlines flight on Christmas Day in 2009. Those types of bombs are the hallmark of al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. Officials see that group as one of the greatest threats to aviation. An individual familiar with the classified findings says the shortfalls point to a need for better technology and increased training for the country's 50,000 TSA agents. For example, in one failure, a TSA agent performing a pat-down of an undercover investigator did not detect a mock explosive taped to that person's back. Frank Salufo is a former White House counterterrorism official.
We're dealing with thinking predators. They base their actions in part on our actions, consistently seeking vulnerabilities, and we've got to do what we can to stay ahead.
One former high-ranking official called the report disturbing. DHS Secretary Jay Johnson was so concerned about the results, he ordered immediate security changes. Jeff Begays, CBS News, Washington.
3 domestic surveillance programs are on hold tonight after the Senate failed to reauthorize the Patriot Act. One of those programs, the bulk collection of phone records, has been the subject of controversy ever since it was revealed by former NSA contractor Edward Snowden. Here is our congressional correspondent, Nancy Cordes.
We find ourselves in a circumstance where important tools have already lapsed.
Senate Leader Mitch McConnell warned U.S. investigators are now working with one hand tied behind their backs, unable to seek roving wiretaps to track suspected terrorists who switch out their cell phones, or to wiretap so-called lone wolves who are not tied to a specific terror group. They are also blocked from conducting new searches of the National Security Agency's phone records database to see who suspected terrorists called and when. According to a federal report, the NSA queried the database 288 times in 2012.
How often are these programs used?
Well, the truth is they're used very seldom.
Republican Richard Burr chairs the Senate Intelligence Committee. He says a temporary lapse won't pose a huge risk, but a longer one would.
When we collect a cell phone of a known terrorist abroad, the ability in real time to check that against the database of American phone calls to see if there was ever a communication is absolutely crucial at our ability to be in front of a terrorist attack.
But many lawmakers believe the bulk collection of phone records is an invasion of privacy. Kentucky Senator Rand Paul blocked a vote Sunday night to extend the program even temporarily.
We can't allow the rule of law to be so trod upon that we live in an arbitrary governmental world where they collect anything they want, anytime they want.
The House has already passed a bill that would stop the NSA's collection of phone data, but allow it to access those records being held by phone companies. The president supports that measure, and Charlie, the Senate could vote on it as early as tomorrow.
Thanks, Nancy. Secretary of State John Kerry is due tonight in Boston, where he'll get treatment for his broken right leg. He broke it in France yesterday when his bicycle hit a curb. Kerry, who is 71, was flown by helicopter today to an airbase in Switzerland for the flight home. As he recovers, he'll take part by phone in the next round of nuclear talks with Iran. The deadline for concluding a deal to curtail Iran's nuclear program is June 30th. In return, painful economic sanctions would be lifted. So what are the chances this can be worked out? Liz Palmer went looking for answers in Tehran.
There's no getting away from the pain of U.S. sanctions here. Grocery prices are up 20% over the past year. Gas and electricity have doubled. Iranians want it to stop, so they're watching the nuclear talks closely, most desperate for a deal. Of course, not everyone is on side. Hardliners see an agreement as a capitulation to America. Hossein Shariat Nadari is a well-known conservative.
Do you think there will be a nuclear deal a month from now?
Hargiz.
Never.
Never, he says. And all the optimism, it's just talk. There was lots of optimism last fall when negotiators came to an interim agreement. But there are now big obstacles ahead. First, how fast the sanctions against Iran would be lifted. The Iranians want relief right away. The U.S. wants a phased approach. The second is how much access international inspectors will have to Iran's military installations to check that they are not developing nuclear weapons. Iran's supreme leader says there will be no access. The U.S. says that's a deal breaker.
Obviously, Charlie, there's a lot to do before the 30th of June. Secretary Kerry's accident has come at a bad time. He gets along very well with Iran's foreign minister, and their close relationship has driven these negotiations forward. It's just not going to be the same dynamic if the secretary is grounded in Washington.
Thank you, Liz. Today, Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina joined the race for the Republican presidential nomination. He said he has more national security experience than any other presidential contender, including Democrat Hillary Clinton. Graham said he would send thousands of U.S. troops back to Iraq. He is the 9th Republican in the race, and there are more to come. Today, the White House website, whitehouse.gov, created a virtual condolence book so the public can send notes of sympathy to the family of Beau Biden. The Vice President's son, who was 46, died Saturday of brain cancer, a disease that kills more than 15,000 Americans every year. We asked our Dr. John LaPook to tell us more about it.
Beau Biden suffered a mild stroke in 2010 and in 2013 underwent surgery to remove what was described as a small brain lesion, although the specifics are not public. The survival rates for brain cancer vary depending on the type of tumor. Most malignant brain tumors in adults are glioblastomas, which are highly aggressive. Treatment includes surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation, but the median survival is about 14 months, and 2-year survival is only 30%.
This is Clara.
32-year-old Clara Guy was diagnosed with a brain tumor when she was pregnant with her second daughter in 2012. A year after surgery, the cancer returned as an advanced glioblastoma.
And I would likely have approximately 6 to 18 months. I've got these 2 young kids. It's not stopping ground for me. And not only that, it felt like a punch in the stomach. So I needed a positive lookout, and it was, okay, who can we find that can have hope?
In 2014, Clara was part of a clinical trial using immunotherapy at Duke University Medical Center. Since cancer often hides itself from the body's defense system, the strategy here is to manipulate immune cells to recognize and attack brain tumors. Dr. John Sampson is part of the team at Duke developing these immunotherapies.
And once we rev up the immune system, the cells from the immune system can actually track the tumor down, even in these deep crevices within the brain, and kill the cells in a very specific way without harming any of the cells around them.
Finding cancer cells in those crevices within the brain is key because a main reason for the poor prognosis is that by the time a diagnosis is made, the tumor cells usually have spread microscopically beyond what's visible on CAT scan or MRI. So far, Clara Guy is doing well.
Thank you, John. Today, a Colorado jury heard James Holmes tell a state-appointed psychiatrist he knew murder was legally wrong when he shot up a movie theater 3 years ago, killing 12 and injuring 70. He said he hoped the shootings would get him out of his depression. This is part of a lengthy interview being played at Holmes' murder trial. Holmes has pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. Tonight, some drivers in Colorado admit they're nervous after the police and the FBI said there's a link between 2 recent highway shootings. Barry Peterson is following this.
For almost 30 years, Carrie Minshew has been commuting on Interstate 25, the main route between Denver and northern Colorado. She's faced blizzards, rain, hail, but never this. Is it in your mind that somebody out there might take a shot?
Absolutely, yes.
That's pretty scary.
It is. It is scary that something could happen to us like that going to work.
I thought I had been in an accident.
It started with the late-night shooting of Corey Romero about 6 weeks ago on the interstate, a bullet passing through her neck.
The pull-down mirror was down, and that's when I saw that they weren't cuts. There were holes on each side.
Then on May 18th, John Jacoby was shot twice and killed riding his bicycle in the city of Windsor, about 60 miles north of Denver.
We linked the 2 shootings with evidence.
Windsor Police Chief John Michaels, whose department is working with local sheriffs and the FBI, won't say what evidence linked the shootings. But he's warning the 500,000 people in the immediate area to be cautious. Are you worried that you're dealing with somebody who is a serial shooter?
We're dealing with an individual that we know, individual or individuals, we know have been involved in 2 shootings. There could be more. We don't know.
As for why those 2 people were targeted, no one will say for sure, but it may well have been random. All the more nerve-wracking, Charlie, for the drivers of the 67,000 vehicles who use this interstate every day.
Thanks, Barry. Bruce Jenner makes a high-profile debut as a woman and reveals a new name. And tragedy at an air show when the CBS Evening News continues. Today, Bruce Jenner went public with a new female identity and name. Jenner will now be known as Caitlyn Jenner, who is 65, is the most high-profile American to identify as transgender. More now from Michelle Miller.
And he's going to shatter.
To one generation, he was a rugged Olympic champion.
What a day for Bruce Jenner!
To another, Kim Kardashian's athletic stepdad. But on the cover of the July issue of Vanity Fair magazine, the person once known as Bruce Jenner now asks the world, "Call me Caitlyn."
Everybody giving you that a boy.
Caitlyn expressed her thoughts on video during her photo shoot with renowned photographer Annie Leibovitz.
Bruce always had to tell a lie. Caitlyn doesn't have any secrets.
It's just a critical moment.
Drew Levasseur is with Lambda Legal, a national organization advocating for legal rights in the transgender community.
What does Caitlyn Jenner's outing do for this movement?
Well, I think that it brings increased amount of visibility. It shows that even somebody who was on the Wheaties box, maybe when they were growing up, can be transgender.
In a 2011 survey, transgender people are twice as likely to be unemployed, twice as likely to be murdered, and have a suicide attempt rate of 41%. But things may be starting to change.
Even for somebody like, Caitlyn Jenner, to have that struggle of coming out is something that people can relate to.
And the Guinness Book of World Records has recognized Caitlyn Jenner's Twitter account as the fastest to reach 1 million followers, breaking President Obama's record in 4 hours, Charlie.
Wow. Thanks, Michelle. There is a little less romance in Paris tonight. You'll see why when we come back. Today, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of a Muslim woman who did not get hired by Abercrombie & Fitch when she showed up for a job interview wearing a headscarf. In another decision, the justices made it harder to prosecute people for making threats online. They threw out the conviction of a man who ranted on Facebook about wanting to kill his ex-wife. In eastern Italy, amateur video captured the moment yesterday when 2 stunt planes collided over the Adriatic during an air show. Both crashed. One pilot died, the other was rescued. Sometimes you can have too much love, even in Paris. For 7 years, tourists have attached locks to the Bridge of the Arts and thrown away the keys to express their undying love. The locks now weigh 45 tons, and the bridge cannot support them. Today, workers began carting away the panels and the locks to be replaced by plexiglass. An earthquake expert reviews this weekend's biggest movie for accuracy when we come back. At the box office this weekend, Tomorrowland finished third, just behind Pitch Perfect 2. The #1 movie, San Andreas. It is about the big one, but how close is it to the real one? Here's John Blackstone.
Hollywood kicked off the summer movie season by destroying its hometown. The disaster movie San Andreas envisions a series of huge earthquakes wiping out much of California.
What does not happen is this. The fault can't open up.
So we're not going to fall in.
We're not going to fall in.
When real earthquakes happen in California, reporters turn to seismologist Lucy Jones of the USGS for all the facts. This is looking bad.
It's looking real bad.
Now she's addressing the fiction. Fact or fiction, most of the high rises in LA fall down.
Most coming down, fiction. A few potentially fact.
You will feel it on the East Coast.
Fact or fiction? They're going to feel this in New York?
No, absolute fiction.
She spent time today on Reddit telling an online audience what the movie got right and what it got wrong.
I see it!
Huge tsunami hits San Francisco.
Tsunami was too big for anywhere. You have to have a subduction zone to create it. We don't have it in San Francisco. Nope.
Still, she sees the movie not as a disaster, but as an opportunity to push the message, be prepared.
It was great to see the seismologist ordering people out of the doorways and under the table.
The movie version of the big one may not match reality, but one thing is clear. Its impact at the box office will be seismic. John Blackstone, CBS News, Hollywood.
It is a movie. That's the CBS Evening News. For Scott Pelley, I'm Charlie Rose in New York. Thank you for joining us. I'll see you first thing tomorrow on CBS This Morning. Good night.